so we can record this. I did record last week, and last week was a really sort of intensive review of several of the verses in here. This particular idea, the way of the Bodhisattva's way of life, the guide to the way of the Bodhisattva's way of life. Shantideva, the story goes that this was really how the Buddha's teachings that he was studying came alive in him. And this was really his map, his interpretation for himself to, how do I understand the conditions of suffering, of discomfort in my own life? How do I understand the conditions of compassion and love in my own life? How do I bring forward the qualities of a good person, the virtues of a good person for me in my life? That's what this book is. It's Shantideva's perspective on all of that. And it's broken down in several chapters. And the first chapter is all about the merit, the importance, the value of cultivating bodhicitta. And bodhicitta is taking these practices, if it's at all possible, out of the mind, where we're so linear and logical and rational, take it out of there and put it into the heart, where it's a little messy and a little murky, maybe a little uncomfortable. It's awful feely in there. We don't always feel comfortable there. But if we can take these thoughts out and put them into the heart and add some understanding there, what ends up happening is the heart starts to soften, the defenses start to come down, things start to open up, and the mind starts to get more curious. The mind starts to get more spacious and open, full of wonder, and suddenly this harmony begins to descend on the coalescence of the mind and heart. Bodhicitta is that Buddha nature within us that really endeavors to have the softened mind, the open heart, and to be guided from that place. So that is what we are endeavoring to do today by reading these verses. Today we're going to read 5. I'm going to read 5 for you and then offer my interpretation, my voice of encouragement for what these verses mean. I highly recommend that you get a book. As I said, there are several translations. They're all a little bit different. And I think the thing that's so cool that we're doing here collectively, friends, is it's one thing to read through all these verses sort of like a poem. It's another thing to read through them and really take them in, slow down, start to question them, put a contemporary spin on it, shift the language around to make it relevant to this time, and shift the language around to make it relevant to recovery. That's what I am endeavoring to do. Wish me luck. Let's invite our chime and we'll begin our beautiful practice. Welcome, everyone. This is Recovery Dharma. My name is Julia. I'm one of the facilitators here, and I'm so happy to share with you today the brilliance of Shantideva. Happy New Year. And what a wonderful thing that we're doing. We're starting the new year prioritizing this time together, this hour together, to turn a gentle and inward gaze on our own harmonized hearts and minds, or maybe our discordant hearts and minds, but nevertheless, wherever you are, to turn an inward gaze, to add a spirit, to add an essence of softening opening curiosity to your own mind and heart, to take into account that we're going to hear words that were shared orally for a number of years before they were ever written down. And the life, the essence of this wisdom has carried on for hundreds and hundreds of years. And here we are today, gathered to hear it. So take a moment and prepare the mind and the body. And what I'd like you to do, what I encourage you to do, is allow the word noble, N-O-B-L-E, noble, to settle into your mind and heart. What does that word mean to you? And if you could embody a posture that is noble, what would your body do? Take a moment and breathe that in. Settle into your body, settle into this space. And prepare to receive. Last week, I shared the verses 13 through 20, and really these were all about two kinds of bodhicitta. An aspirational bodhicitta, the desire to have a softened mind, a softened heart, the desire to be open and curious and healing, to want a life that is filled with positive qualities and virtuous actions, to aspire to be an instrument of peace so that we can create the conditions for others to become instruments of peace in their own unique way. There's the second kind of bodhicitta, which is an engaged mind. So it's one thing to have an aspiration. It's another thing to take that aspiration and to put it into an action. And I just want to remind you that you cannot put into action what you haven't yet aspired. So just because your aspirations have not yet been put into action does not mean they are of less value. Your aspirations are the things that inform and guide your actions. So to have an aspiring mind is so very, very important. And then to put it into action and to be willing to make mistakes. To aspire to learn and grow and mature as we go. We're not aspiring to have everything perfected before we act. We're aspiring to get as much clarity as we can, act, and then see what happens. Keep going. Today, we're going to take that a little bit farther. And these are the words of Shantideva. This is verse 21 in chapter 1. If even the thought to relieve the headaches of others is a beneficial intention, that results in infinite merit. What can be said of the wish to dispel the immeasurable misery of each and every living being and lead them to all countless good qualities. Verse 23, does our father or mother have such a beneficial intention as this? Do the gods or the sages? Does even Brahma himself? Brahma in the Hindu tradition is the god of creation. Verse 24, if before generating bodhicitta these living beings do not even dream of such a mind for their own sakes, how will they develop it for the sake of others? Verse 25, this mind to benefit living beings, which does not arise in others even for their own sakes, is an extraordinary jewel of a mind whose birth is an unprecedented wonder. Friends, the Bodhisattva is an awakened being who has an overwhelming desire, an overwhelming devotion to remove suffering in all living beings. Bodhisattva, that's their whole purpose, their whole destiny for being here. And Shantideva, in this first verse that I read today, is reminding us that the thought, just the thought of alleviating suffering in yourself or in someone else is extraordinary. It's wonderful just to have the thought, even something as insignificant as, say, a headache. Your desire to be of service, to offer comfort, to want another person to not have to suffer, even a headache. And the reason why this is so important to bring forward, especially in the context of recovery, is when we are engaged in habit energy, we literally can put ourselves to sleep. We can anesthetize ourselves to such a degree that we don't have these thoughts anymore. In fact, the thoughts become so distorted that when we feel bad, the thoughts and stories generated in our unconscious mind are ones that suggest we deserve these bad feelings. We deserve the misery we've created and inflicted upon ourselves. Shantideva is reminding us to wake up. There's another perspective. That good heart, that Buddha nature within, since beginningless time, remains. And at any time you can have a thought to alleviate suffering, and that is enough. The second verse, he writes, "What can be said of the wish to dispel the immeasurable misery of each and every living being and lead them to countless good qualities?" I interpret that to mean, imagine if we all could cultivate that wish. If we could all cultivate, A, the desire to see suffering in others and to recognize the suffering we see in others is also the suffering we have in ourselves, and then to engage in creating the conditions to ease that suffering, to create the conditions of understanding. Imagine if we could manifest that and realize that in our lives. Imagine if we could create our whole life framed by that guiding light, framed by the pursuit of understanding suffering enough that we create conditions to bring ease to it, to bring peace to it in ourselves and in others. The next verse, when I read it, I kind of hear him say things like, well, who does this? What kind of person? Like a mom, your mom, your dad, the gods, sages? I mean, who really can pull this off? Who can do this? Because the reality is, we have mothers and fathers out there that don't do this. We have sages out there who've studied this, who explore this, who live their lives, who curate whole communities, and even they falter. Is this the realm of only gods, the Creator God Himself? So Shantideva is speaking to doubt, my doubt, like, well, I'm never going to be a bodhisattva. I'm never going to be that unconditional. I'm never going to have that limitlessness in my care and my compassion. I'm just this regular person with all of these flaws and imperfections. How am I ever going to attain this bodhisattva status? And then I've got this self-saboteur that's like, wow, if I can't get it perfected, then what's the point? I might as well not even endeavor to try. And that's what Shantideva's pointing to. At least for me. When I read that verse, he's reminding me of like, yeah, Julia, stop being so arrogant. You don't have to be so big and bold. Just be yourself. And that's what he brings us back in the next verse. If before generating bodhicitta, these guys, these perfected folks over here, if they don't even dream of such a mind for themselves, for their own sakes, how will they develop it for the sake of others? So what Shantideva is saying, at least to me, is, psst, Julia, yo, girlfriend, we're all in this together. Regular people, everyday people, just like me, highly practiced people, fully realized people, all people. And it begins in the same place. One's own heart and lived experience. So if I do not cultivate this aspiration within myself, How can I possibly extend it to others? So I must aspire to dispel the suffering within me. I must aspire to understand the conditions of my own suffering, my own hang-ups, all the ways I get stirred, all the ways I get activated, all the nonsensical stories and exaggerations and inflations and distortions I keep telling myself over and over and over again as a way of keeping myself small, oppressed, dark, and step into the light of limitless compassion, limitless loving kindness, limitless joy, limitless equanimity and inclusivity. Have the fearlessness to allow everything about me, everything that's coming alive in my life, all my negative habit energy that's caused me so much misery and has leaked out and affected others in so many yucky, gross, sticky ways, and all of the ways that I have endeavored to bring to life munificence and benevolence. Both of those things make the whole of me. I don't have to try to be anything or anyone other than me. Not to understand and heal myself so that I can be better than anyone. No. To heal and understand myself so that when I walk into this world, when I walk into my day, my steps leave behind an imprint, leave behind the conditions so that when others encounter it, they are empowered to awaken to their own misery. Shantideva ends with this kind of mind, this kind of aspiration, and this kind of engagement is a wonder. And it's a wonder because it takes effort and participation and patience and time and struggle and success, the fruit of which is, I think, probably without words, really. And the most extraordinary thing about this, really, for me anyway, is the potential. Shantideva reminds us the potential is there. It's incorruptible. And it lives in you and in me. And we are here today called by some inexplicable voice, some inexplicable wisdom, some fruit of our own good karma has led us here today, despite all the dumpster fires that we have created. Right beside all those dumpster fires, all the confusion, all the chaos, everything. Beside all of that, we have all done something good. We've all created the karmic trail to lead us to be able to take refuge in the Buddha. Today, in the Buddha nature of Shantideva, the way the Dharma came alive in Shantideva to such a degree that it still lives. And it's now being planted as a beautiful seed in the fertility of our own minds and hearts. And then we get to come together as a community and talk about it and reflect back to one another and be encouraged by one another to keep going, to keep healing, to keep making mistakes, to seek forgiveness, to drop the excuse making and the hustling, and to learn to stand in our own power and our own agency and go, oh man, that wasn't skillful. Here's what I'm going to do differently next time, because I aspire to be skillful and I'm not always going to get it right. But the aspiration, I can keep coming back to that aspiration. And that'll keep my energy going so that when I make mistakes, rather than spiral out, spin out, return to habit energy, I don't need to do that. I can simply sit with the error and go, wow, would you look at this? What can I learn? How can I mature? How can I do better and different? Keep going. What a beautiful invitation. What a great reminder. You have everything you need. A good mind, a good heart, the light of this wisdom. May it guide your journey in remembering just how sacred you are. And I'd like to end our practice today with a dedication of merit. I've been listening to Pema Chodron, and I've been listening to her interpretations of Shantideva's work. She's looking at the 5th chapter. We're exploring the 1st chapter. And her talk is all about, it was like a multi-day retreat that she did. And it's fantastic. And she has a dedication that I really love. And what she invites practitioners to do is close your eyes for a moment and just imagine the wisdom that was shared today, not only by Shantideva, not only any essence of wisdom that might have been coming through me, but the wisdom that was shared collectively from the community, the ways that the Dharma was activated in people who got to share. It's extraordinary. When you really think about it, and you think about all the things that we could be doing today, all the things that people are doing while they're not here. It's this incredible opportunity that we have shown up for. And so if you can envision it like a light, Pema Chodron describes it like a bright light. Or maybe allow your imagination the freedom and the permission to imagine wisdom in whatever way is alive for you. If light doesn't work for you, maybe it's a meadow of flowers. Maybe it's a snowflake under a microscope, or an icicle about to release a single drip. Just whatever it is, allow it to really take over the mind, and then allow it to drop into your body. Maybe even find purchase in your heart. Allow this wisdom to fill you up, to keep you inspired, to keep you joyful and curious, to keep you afloat in the tumultuous waters that we are bound to encounter. Whether those waters that we have to navigate include craving, temptation, habit energy, grief, anger, confusion. May this wisdom keep you safe, protected, afloat, alight. And in the beautiful words of Shantideva, a gentle reminder of the Bodhisattva's way. For as long as space endures, for as long as living beings remain, may I too remain to help dispel the misery of the world. You all do this so well with your presence here. Thank you for inspiring me. Thank you for leaving such a beautiful impression in this space. Thank you for your practice, and we'll see you next time. Namaste.